Hello, everybody. This is Sherri Leopold with Outside the Box, and I'm going to put my glasses on here so I can add Lashonda here. Let me find her. Let's see here. Oh, gosh, I hate when this doesn't. Let me see here. If you're on there, Lashonda, join me. Let's see here. Just love how these always start so slowly. There she is. You can go ahead and request to join, Lashonda. It's not letting me invite anybody at the moment. So if you can just request to join, then I can approve it. Huh. Why it's not doing that. Let's see. The fun of lies. Oh, I'm trying to type on my computer and I'm not on my computer. Okay. This is, as I said, Outside the Box with Sherri. And we are going to, there it is. Okay, thank you. We'll see. Okay. See if she's coming on here. I just have to remember to look in the camera instead of picture. Let's see if we can get you on here. It says adding. Oh, it says you declined it. Okay, hang on. Try it again. Add me again. While we're trying to work on that a little bit. Did it work? See if I can do it from my side. Yeah, because it's already on there. Let's see. Won't let me add, and I'm saying it's approving. It says it's adding you. Okay, goodness gracious. This is how my lives go. Let's see. This way and see if it'll let you on since I added you.
How's that? There we go.
I don't know why it doesn't want to let me do that, and I get so frustrated. Thank you for joining me this morning. I'm so excited to talk to you in person. I gotta move the comments so I can concentrate. I want to introduce you guys to Lashonda Fletcher. Gosh, she has lots of letters behind her name, so I'll just tell you that she's awesome. And I'm gonna have her tell you a little bit about some of the things that she is doing. But as I said in the live, that she's a speaker, an author, and a pastor, and I'm gonna let her share a little bit about some of the things she's currently doing. You know, if you've watched this before, you know that Outside the Box with Sherri is sort of shining a spotlight on people who are living outside their comfort zone and really I love to connect with people who are helping people, which is probably why Lashonda is on here. She was referred by someone who I love and admire. So anyway, Lashonda, why don't you tell us a little bit about the fun things that you're doing and how you're living your life out loud?
Well, right now I am in the process of pretty much marketing my new book. You Can't Give Up Now. And so I'm doing different book signings and things of that nature around the city for my new
Oh, tell
book.
us where you're
And of
from.
course,
Tell us where you're from, because I didn't
oh,
say that. Sorry.
I am from Louisville, Kentucky.
Okay.
Yes, I'm from Louisville, Kentucky. I co-pastor New Revelation Church alongside my husband, Pastor Carl Fletcher. And I also have my own counseling center called Revelation Counseling Center. And so, for the most part, I'm pretty busy at my counseling center. I pretty much have a full caseload from week to week. I do a lot of couples counseling. I also do a lot of individual counseling. I have probably a good probably half and half as far as mostly women clients, and then the other half is probably couples. So I do a whole lot of couples work. I do have some guys in there, but for the most part, probably more females than I do males right now. Yeah.
That's probably typical, I would say. I'm gonna move myself back a little bit. And I swear, every time I do one of these lives, I have one of my cats. If you see the camera moving, it's because she decides when I'm talking out loud, I must need to pet her. So she's running around my
Really?
feet. She keeps hitting the thing that the camera's on. So I apologize. So she just meowed really loudly too while you were talking, but it's live. Anyway, well, thank you so much for sharing that. Tell us a little bit about the thrust behind the book, You Can't Stop Now, because obviously I love the name of the book. So I want to hear a little bit more about what motivated you to write it, what it's about, and how it can help our readers.
Okay, so basically, kind of what helped me to write You Can't Give Up Now. Well, what the book consists of is, so I've been pastoring, co-pastoring now, going on 8 years in about 2 weeks, right? And so what happened is a couple of years ago, my mother passed away on November the 13th. And so in the process of my mother passing away, at that point, it's really rough when you lose somebody so close to you. She died of
Yes.
stage 4 stomach cancer. And so at that point, when she passed away, I really felt like I was at my height. I had just graduated from college. I had opened up my counseling center a couple of months later. I had released my book, The Black Church in Mental Health, and I was speaking all over the place. And when she passed away, I felt like I had just took a TKO, like somebody had just like knocked the breath out of me when I had finally was really happy with where I was at in life. And so I found myself kind of in this emotional roller coaster. I feel like that, you know what, I have this thing to go now. And then next thing you know, I can't go. I'm paralyzed. I'm not, up to moving, to my fullest capacity, and so at that point, this book, You Can't Give Up Now, I feel like that it's of course it's a devotional workbook, but I also
Okay.
feel like we're always looking, for somebody else to give us a word, so as Christians, sometimes we go from place to place, looking, for that encouragement or for somebody to give us a word in order to help push us to the next level. And so one of the things that I like about my book, You Can't Give Up Now, what I did is I took these sermons and I transformed them into devotionals, and I shortened some of them. I put activities at the end of them. And in these activities, it gives people the opportunity to be able to go find their own word, So it's like this book is going to bring about a transformation, but that transformation is not going to happen if you're not willing to put in the work. And
Right.
so my goal is always to encourage people to reach their highest potential. And I believe the sermons that I actually pick are those sermons that is going to encourage people to keep on moving, those sermons that is going to help motivate people to achieve their dreams and to achieve their goals, and for them to know that they actually have it in them. And
Right.
so that's what this book is. I know I get excited talking about it.
That's okay, because I'm right there with Dream Big with Sherri. So I know I get to ramble. I'm like, oh, I
Oh,
get
yeah.
excited. So I know I'm
Okay.
totally with you there. Yep. And I think that's one of the things. I lost my dad in January, and it's one of those things where you feel like you have all the wheels rolling and everything's going great, and then that happens, and you're just like, why? And it's very hard sometimes to keep going, and especially as
Mhm.
women, we have so many roles as wife and mom and daughter and, all those things. And, people are, I don't want to say they pulling you in all directions, but you have a lot of things coming at you for all the roles and the hats that you wear. So when something happens like that and you're on your own personal entrepreneurial journey, it's just like you sort of
Mhm.
stop in your tracks, and I kind of see like what your book is about kind of keeping going in that hardest time,
Oh, yeah.
and to keep moving, and
Yeah.
those people that we lost obviously are, watching over us and thrilled that we're having that success. And, I had to look at it as my dad would be very unhappy if for some reason I got so far off track and didn't keep moving, with the
Oh, yeah.
goals and the dreams that I had pushed for, because he was always a definite encourager, for me.
Yeah.
So I try to look at it as he would be disappointed if the loss of him were to derail me, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And so
anyway,
that's
go
one of
ahead.
the reasons why I decided to go and get my doctoral degree. Is my mom told everybody that I was a doctor. So I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. And in my mom's eyes, I'm a psychiatrist. So she would go to these different stores and she would tell people that her daughter's a doctor. And so I felt like, you know what, I cannot allow my mother to have passed away and to be a liar. And so at this
That's right.
point in the game, I'm also working on my doctoral degree as well.
Oh, I love that. I think that's so awesome. Thanks, Mom. I
Exactly,
love that.
right? I wish she was here to help with the work.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Well, I chuckle because my degree is in family social services. And so I went about halfway through my master's in counseling, but I chuckle because a couple of my friends call me Dr. Phyllis. It's like, I think that might be because they feel comfortable unloading. But anyway, that's a whole other story. But right now I don't have a doctor. Fortunately, he didn't put that on me, but I congratulate you on that because that's a lot of hard work and a lot of determination. And you know what? You're going to be able to use that to inspire lots of people. I actually would like for you to talk about this is something that when I read your bio, I actually didn't know was a thing. I didn't know what Black church studies are. So I would actually love for you to expound a little bit on that. And I know that you have one of your books, it's The Black Church and Mental Health. So I'd like to kind of have
Mhm.
you talk a little bit about that, and where your purpose in that came from, and what your mission is and with that.
Okay, okay. So basically, the Black Church Studies is, so I have a certificate in Black Church Studies. I went to Louisville Presbyterian Theological Seminary. And so
Mm-hmm.
while I was there, I got my master's in marriage and family therapy, a master's in religion, and a certificate in Black Church Studies. And so basically, the Black Church Studies is kind of a concentrated program for people who want to study the Black Church. And so
Mm-hmm.
basically, what I did is I took my marriage and family therapy degree and that religion and Black church studies background, and I merged them when it came time for me to do my MAR thesis. And so, what I did is an in depth study on the African American community and how they feel about mental health. And so then to top that off, I researched, the Black church, and African Americans have always seen the church as a place of refuge. And so
Mm-hmm.
I decided that if I target the Black church, where African Americans view this place is a place of sanctity, a place of refuge. Usually, if I target that and they pastor say, you know what, it's okay for you to go and get mental health help, then they will come because African Americans go to their pastors for counseling, for financial needs, for marriage counseling, for everything. And so
Right.
if pastors say that it's okay, then guess what? It's okay for me to go ahead and seek out help because sometimes within our communities, not even just the African American communities, because I've talked to some of my other counterparts and they're like, nope, that's not just the African American community, but the stigmas and the myths that's associated with mental health. It's like, as individuals, oftentimes, especially as Christians, we go seek out our pastors for help, and they don't realize the agency is out there and that it's available to them. but we're in the churches oftentimes getting prayed for depression. Depression is considered to be, a demon or a foul
Right.
spirit. It's considered to be all of these things. And so then people don't want to go get help because they think of depression in such a, with all the stigmas and myths associated with it, or I don't have enough faith in God and all of these other things. And a lot of the pastors don't recognize that, this is a medical thing. If our blood pressure is up, our pastors
Right.
is going to say, "Hey, go to the doctor." If I
Yes.
fall, hurt my knee, they're going to say, "Hey, you need to go get stitches." So why
Right.
is it when we have chemical imbalance in the brain, our pastors are not saying, "Hey, you might need to
Right.
go and see a doctor," instead of sitting here trying to figure out something for a person who might have bipolar disorder,
Right.
schizophrenia, or some other serious mental health issues that they can't help them with. And
Right.
so the book crosses over cultural barriers. You understand what I'm saying? But
Yes.
considering my concentration on Black church studies, I think anybody can read it and really appreciate, the book, The Black Church and Mental Health.
Hmm. I think it's fascinating. I love that you chose that focus. And as much as we want to be one and be in unity and things like that, and I fully support that, I think that we have to understand that culturally, because we've come from such different undercurrents, we have to recognize sometimes there are differences. And
Mm-hmm.
we have to accept those and learn about those to be able to be in alignment, I guess, if you want to say it that way.
Yeah.
And I love that you shined a light on that. See, that's the whole thing with think outside the box with Sherri. It's because that is not a normal thing. You just don't see that everywhere. That's why my cat is doing it in. Sorry. Which is why, when I read that, I was like, oh, that's so cool. I love that. So anyway, well, I appreciate the work that you're doing in that area. And I also think that, you know, people tend to like go to church like that for those issues a lot of times. First off, I think partly because they have this, I don't know, conception, if you will, or perception that it's a very private thing, so I can say something to the pastor that they won't say to anybody else, like that's still my secret. you
Oh
know
yeah.
i and I think that, so that's a lot of times where they start there. So having, the pastors hooked with those people who can provide the services that are needed, because as you well know, because you have the education, what the education that you got as a pastor is very different than what you got in the training for the licensed marriage and family therapy.
Oh yeah. Oh
It's
yeah.
not that there aren't similar things, but the training was much more extensive over here, and some things have to be yielded to that professional. And
Mm-hmm.
if they don't have
Yeah.
the database of people to refer to or know that they should refer to and can refer to and work in partnership with, then we do a disservice to the person sitting in front of us.
Yes, exactly. And that's one of the things that I kind of tackle in my book, and that is even in my doctoral studies, I'm going to focus on pastors and getting them training for, mental health,
Mhm.
because I personally feel like that when pastors go to theology school, they usually given one pastoral counseling class. That's not
Right.
enough. You know, especially when you're dealing with, some pastors got over 200 members, 500 members, thousands of members. It's like, get either hire a marriage and family therapist or a licensed social worker on staff, or,
Right.
make sure that when you get in your studies that you take more than just one counseling class, because the reality is that, like you said, there's cultural differences.
Hmm.
And so, even as a therapist, I deal with people from all walks of life, different socioeconomic status, different races, and things of that nature. And you have to be ready to receive those people and be able to communicate with them without, perceiving something is wrong that might not be there,
Right.
And so, That's the reason why I just feel like that it's important, that pastors do have a list of resources that's available and trusted professionals that they can actually refer their congregants to if they know that they can't do the counseling themselves.
Right. And I think as you look at today's day and age, even as opposed to even 20 or 30 years ago, some of the things that we as people deal with on an individual basis in our life and things that are thrown at us, I feel like that one class, and I'll liken it to, because I share the Thrive Experience, the nutritional supplement, and somebody will take it to their doctor and they reject it out of hand. Well, they go to school for 8 years, well, total of 4 years medical school. They have one class on nutrition. Probably not necessarily an expert in nutrition. So
Exactly.
I liken it to the same thing. Sometimes we have to say, well, I'm going to look at blank. And here's, in my case, I generally say, go check with your pharmacist and your doctor, because your pharmacist understands the interaction things when people are on medication. But it's kind of the same thing. So, if you only have one class, but yet you're predominantly doing that. And if you ask a pastor, I would guess they probably spend 75% of their time with people coming to them for help. So the very fact that we have such a small percentage of what you're going to school for in that degree, focused on what you do in the application, there's got to be something that's going to have to be changed if you're going to be effective as a pastor in a church.
Yeah.
It's not about wowing somebody at the front of the church. It's what's happening, Monday through Saturday when people are coming through your doors a mess.
Oh yeah. And two, I tell, people often that you have to be real mindful of certain things. And it's nothing, of course I pastor, me and my husband co-pastor, but people go to their pastors for marriage counseling. Well, what if your pastor is an awful husband? You'll never know it, because pastors have to give oftentimes a certain perception behind the pulpit. And then you're going into this office asking for marital help. And this guy might not even know what to do in his own relationship, own marriage, don't have to work on his own thing. And so but that's the reality, and so I think what my goal is, and by all means, it's not to bash pastors. I come from a pastoral family, but sometimes it's about taking off some of those hats, and pastors wear a lot of hats. They're usually very loving, they're usually very caring, they usually want to help people. But if this is not your thing, get resources, and are either, read lots of books, do something to make sure that you educate yourself, so that way you can be the help that you want to be. Do more harm within, the relationships and, things of that nature. So that's, I guess, probably my best way of saying it.
Yes, and I think that's true. I think we just assume when we look at the person at the front of the room on Sunday or Wednesday or whenever you go, that they have all the answers and that they'll be able to help with no matter what you put at their feet. And I don't know, I think that's too much for the pastors to have to actually shoulder, in my opinion. And that goes into a whole other topic that we won't talk about, because we'll be here for another hour talking about the stresses, the daily stresses on a pastor and what's expected. And obviously recently in the news, I'm sure you saw it, about the pastor that committed suicide. And it was, anyway, I mean, there's a lot of issues. Yes, there's a lot of issues with that, with mental health issues with pastors. And I think we have to somewhere along the line remember that they're also human beings. Yes. And you can't put them on a pedestal. It's too far to fall.
Exactly. And I mean, like, now as a pastor, there's so many social pressures. You have the whole prosperity and mega church movement. pastors are trying to keep up with their counterparts and people who went to school with them who might have a mega church, and then you have a small church, and you have all of these pressures that's placed upon pastors nowadays, and then you got congregants that is pulling on you. Then you got sermons to prepare it, and all of these things, and then you are trying to find a safe space. And I think that's one of the things that I like to tell people, that one of the benefits of actually seeing a therapist is that you have this safe space. Like everything that is said in session with a therapist is 100% confidential. There's a couple little things, like suicide,
Right.
harm to another person, or court order that might um, can violate that confidentiality agreement. But those are the only things that will pretty much violate a confidentiality agreement.
Mhm.
And so, like you said, in us even going to our pastors in the first place, it's like, okay, well, if I go to my friend, then it might spread all through, all of my other friends might know. If I go to my mom, it might spread all through the family. If I go to,
Right.
these other people, you might not want people to know your business. And if you don't want
Right.
people to know your business, then counseling is a very safe place for you to
Yes.
be able to go and be able to process and work through those emotions and feelings and, things of that nature. So it's good.
And just to know you're okay. I mean, I think that's a big thing. And even for pastors, I think they have to have that go-to person. There's no shame in that.
Yeah.
And just because they supposed to have it all together doesn't mean they do necessarily. Now, I think it's different sometimes
Yeah.
working on your own stuff than helping somebody else. Sometimes it's easier to help somebody else than it is to help yourself. But I want to
Yeah.
just really quick before we finish up, have you talk about your mental talk with Shonda on the channel 200. I see that you have that on Sundays. Can you tell us a little
I
bit about what that's
do.
about? And can anybody from anywhere watch it, or is it local to
It's a
Louisville?
local. Yeah, it's local to Louisville, but Mental Talk with Shonda, one of my goals from seminary is always been to bring mental health awareness to the community. I want to allow mental health to be a part of our daily conversation, whether it's
Mhm.
our self-esteem. I think sometimes people don't realize that when we think about mental health, we automatically go to the extreme parts of, mental health, or we
Right,
think about what is it, crazy? And it's like,
right, or
no,
breakdown.
actually, exactly. Sometimes we just have issues that takes place in our life. And when those issues come, it can cause us, behavior issues, might be having crying spells, a little bit of
Yes,
anxiety. All of us have been depressed at one point of our life, maybe not to an extreme, but so this show is there to kind of soften mental health, to kind of make a mental health just a regular part of conversation. So
right,
I have different guests that come on. I talk about celebrities and mental health because, nowadays mental health is finally, picking up speed, and celebrities are beginning to come forward like Mariah Carey and, football players and things
yes,
of that nature. So I even kind of talk a little bit about pop culture and some of their mental health things that they've been having going on. And then I also talk about couples and give tidbits and, just things of that nature. So it's just a whole smorgasbord of just different topics, every 6 weeks. And I film 2 episodes and every 6 weeks, and I just pick different topics, but it's a lot of fun. So,
oh, it sounds awesome. And I actually, it's interesting because I think that uh, call them keyboard warriors, but where people are very free to judge and issue blanket statements about celebrities, about people in general, about you, the pastor, whatever, and
yeah.
they feel comfortable saying anything they want about anybody they want. And I often think about people seem to forget that those people are still human beings as we go back to that again. And, I had this conversation with my, well, I won't say who it is, but someone in my family about pastors and in the mega church and that person makes a lot of money, and they were speaking negatively. And I said, why do you have a problem with that pastor making a lot of money? I'm like, that's what I'm hearing. I said, is that what you mean? He's like, well, I just don't think that's right. I said, yeah, but do you know what he gives? Do you know what he does? Do you know where the income is? I said, are you just opposed to pastors should live like paupers? I mean, is that your perception? I was like, it was a whole conversation about it. And I was just like, pretty sure that we're not supposed to sit in judgment of that. But you know what? Once again, when you put somebody like that in front of you at the front of the church or on television, the celebrity, you put the bullseye on and say fire, because that's where you've put yourself. But when you have, and I do it too, and so do you, because we're speakers and authors, and we put our information out there, which allows a target to be placed for people to say anything they want, no matter if they know us, no matter if they've walked in our shoes, no matter if they know what goes on behind the scenes. And to me, people that come into this space like you, who shine a light on that and who provide that avenue to soften that ability or soften the perception so that it's easier to ask for help and to provide the safe place, for help. I appreciate that about you, Lashonda, that you are that person they can go to, and that you do accept that you have the resources, and be willing to share out to find those people connection to who they need to be connected to get to a better space. So I thank you for
You're
that.
welcome.
So anyway, is there any final thought you would like to share?
No, not really. Anybody that's watching the broadcast, if you're going through something, right now in your life, um, please reach out, get the help it is that you need. Of course, our pastors are always wonderful, and it's always a great resource for us to go to for prayer. And after you've received that prayer, if you feel like you need more, just know that it's okay for you to be able to seek help. If you get the opportunity, of course, you can go and you can check out, my website. I do put up different articles about depression, relationship advice, and stuff like that on my counseling center website. Is that okay to share?
Yes, if you would share that, and I'll have you privately send me all the links, because I'll put them all in
Okay.
the thing. Or you can go back into the video and type them into the comments too, would be great.
Okay, so but that's www.rcclouisville.com. But I just want to make sure that people know. Because life can be hard on us sometimes, and so my goal is always to try to be, uplift and a light everywhere I go. So that's what my goal is.
Absolutely. And you
Yeah.
know what? I think you're doing that, and I'm super proud of you. And I'm very happy to have been able to meet you and talk with you. And I look forward to getting to know you better. And I'm pretty sure I'm coming to Louisville, so that'll be fun. Maybe I'll get a chance to meet you, because I think Tanya and I are hatching a plan. So anyway, well, I appreciate you. I thank you, and be sure to send me those links. Because we'll put the video up on YouTube, and so you'll be able to share it as well. So thank you so much for your knowledge and your courage, and sharing all of your gifts with all of us, and for being one of those outside the box thinkers. I really appreciate you. Thank you, Lashonda Fletcher.
Thank
Awesome.
you. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Bye bye.